15 Stoic lessons that will help you stop living in anxiety. If I told you that 90% of the things you worry about will never happen, would you believe me? And if I proved it to you, would that change anything? Probably not. Because anxiety doesn't work with logic. You already know most of your worries are exaggerated, that most fears won't come true. But that doesn't stop you from worrying. Your mind keeps creating catastrophic scenarios, and you keep reacting to them as if they were real. But here's what's fascinating. The Stoics, more than 2,000 years ago, understood this. They developed a complete system to deal with anxiety. And what's impressive is that their teachings are more relevant today than ever. Because while the world has changed completely, the human mind continues to function exactly the same way. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 15 Stoic lessons that, if you truly absorb them, can radically change how you experience life. Not just reduce anxiety, but transform your entire relationship with fear, uncertainty, and suffering. And I'm going to start with the lesson that's perhaps the most powerful and least understood. The first thing you need to understand is that 90%, yes, 90% of what you worry about will never happen. This isn't my opinion. It's backed by research. A University of Michigan study followed people for months and recorded everything they worried about. The result? 85% of what people worried about never happened, and of the 15% that did happen, 79% discovered they could handle it better than imagined. Do the math. This means that 97% of your worries are either baseless or manageable. So why do we keep worrying? Because our brain evolved to detect threats. 10,000 years ago, the guy who worried about the tiger in the bushes survived. The optimist who said everything will be fine became lunch. So your brain is programmed to be an anticipation machine of problems. It scans the environment, imagines threats, creates catastrophic scenarios, all to try to keep you safe. The problem is, we no longer live in a world of tigers and caves. The threats today are abstract, distant, uncertain, but your brain hasn't received the memo. It keeps reacting as if every worry were a matter of life and death, as if that job presentation were a tiger attack, as if that awkward conversation were a threat to your survival. And here's where the Stoics enter. They discovered something revolutionary. You can't control most external events. You can't control whether you'll be fired, can't control whether someone will like you, can't control whether you'll get sick, can't control the economy, politics, other people, but you have absolute control over one thing, your reaction. Epictetus, who was a slave before becoming one of history's greatest philosophers, said something that can change everything. He said there are things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. Up to us are our judgments, our desires, our aversions, our actions. Not up to us are our body, our possessions, our reputation, our position. And happiness comes from focusing exclusively on what is up to us. Think about how much mental energy you waste trying to control what's not up to you. How much anxiety comes from trying to control outcomes, other people, the future. And imagine what would happen if you took all that energy and redirected it to the only thing you actually can control. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions. This doesn't mean becoming passive, doesn't mean not caring about results. It means understanding where your real power lies. You can prepare for the presentation, but can't control if they'll like it. You can take care of your health, but can't guarantee you won't get sick. You can be a good friend, but can't control if the person will value you. And when you truly understand this, when you stop fighting against what you don't control and start focusing on what you do control, something magical happens. Anxiety starts to dissolve, because anxiety is precisely this, the attempt to control what cannot be controlled. But let me tell you something even more powerful. The Stoics discovered that the problem isn't events themselves. The problem is what you think about events. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the known world, wrote in his diaries something that seems simple but has depth of an ocean. He said that if you're distressed by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Let me translate this to your life. You wake up, look at your phone, see a message from your boss saying we need to talk. Your stomach turns, your mind starts running. You're going to be fired. You did something wrong. You're in trouble. Anxiety shoots up. But notice that absolutely nothing has happened yet. Your boss didn't say you're fired, didn't say you did something wrong. The only thing that happened was a message saying, we need to talk. Everything else is story your mind created. And here's the interesting part. Another person receiving the same message might think, oh, maybe it's about that project, or maybe they're going to ask my opinion on something. The message is the same. The situation is the same. What changes is the interpretation, and that interpretation, that story your mind tells, that's where the suffering is born. The Stoics had a word for this. They called it phantasia, external impression. Something happens, your senses capture. But between the impression and your reaction, there's a space, a gap. And in that gap lives your freedom, because you can choose what to think about what's happening. Not what happens to you, but what you decide it means. Most people never learn this. They believe their thoughts are facts. If you think I'm going to fail, you believe it's true. If you think everyone is judging you, you live as if it were real. But thoughts are just thoughts. They're not prophecies. They're not certainties. They're mental events. And you can observe them, question them, choose whether to believe them or not. This is a skill, like learning to play an instrument or speak a language. It takes practice. But when you develop it, when you learn to create space between stimulus and response, when you realize you can choose what to think about what's happening, you stop being a slave to circumstances. And this leads me to something that can seem strange at first glance, but that has immense power to reduce anxiety. The Stoics practice something that seems contradictory. They imagine the worst possible scenario on purpose. Seems crazy, doesn't it? If anxiety comes from imagining bad things, why would imagining bad things on purpose help? But here's the crucial difference. Anxiety imagines the worst in an uncontrolled, fleeting, fragmented way. You glimpse the disaster but can't look at it directly. It's like seeing a figure in the dark that scares you precisely because you can't identify what it is. The Stoics did it differently. They looked directly at the worst scenario, in detail, calmly, and then asked themselves, if this happens, what do I do? Seneca called this practice the premeditation of evils. Every day in the morning he dedicated a few minutes to imagining the worst things that could happen that day. Loss of money, betrayal by friends, illness, even his own death. And then he mentally prepared himself for these possibilities. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. Because when you've already faced the worst scenario in your mind, when you've already thought about what you'd do if that happened, fear loses its power. You're no longer running from the monster. You looked at it, saw that you can survive it, and now you can move forward without that weight on your back. Think about a fear you have today. It could be losing your job, ending a relationship, an illness, anything. Now imagine that it happened. Not superficially, but really imagine it. You lost your job. And then? What happens? Do you die? Probably not. Do you end up in a difficult situation? Probably yes, but you can look for another job. You can reduce expenses. You can ask for help. You can discover skills you didn't even know you had. You might even discover that what seemed like a disaster was actually a door opening. When you travel all the way to the bottom of your fear and discover there's life down there, that you can survive and even rebuild yourself, fear loses control over you. You're no longer paralyzed by uncertainty. You know that whatever happens, you'll find a way. Now pay attention to what I'm going to tell you, because this completely changes perspective. If you live to be 80 years old, you'll have about 4,000 weeks. 4,000 seems like a lot. It's not. If you're 30 years old, you've already spent more than 1,500. If you're 40, more than 2,000. Each week that passes is one less week you have available, and most people waste more than half of those weeks worried about things they don't control. The Stoics had an expression for this: memento mori. Remember that you will die. I know it seems morbid, but actually it's liberating. Because when you really internalize that your time is limited, that each day could be the last, you stop wasting energy on nonsense. You stop worrying about what others think. You stop postponing what's important. You stop living as if you had infinite time. The consciousness of death isn't an invitation to despair. It's an invitation to urgency. It's looking at life's clock and realizing it's running. And instead of paralyzing you with fear, this frees you to truly live, because when you accept that you're going to die one day, that you don't know when, that it could be tomorrow or in 50 years, you stop being afraid of death and start being afraid of not living. Marcus Aurelius wrote something I carry with me. He said you could leave life right now, so let that determine what you do, say, and think. It's not a phrase to depress you, it's a phrase to wake you up, to make you question whether what you're doing with your time is worthwhile, whether the things that worry you deserve your attention, whether the fears that paralyze you are really worthy of the little time you have. If you're watching this video up to here, you're not like most people. Most would have left already, sought an easier distraction, something that didn't require reflection. But you stayed. And that tells me something important about you. It tells me you're ready for change. So subscribe to the channel now. Hit the bell, because people like you deserve to continue receiving content that truly makes a difference. And I want to have you with me on this journey. Now comes something nobody talks about, but that the Stoics valued more than any word: silence. We live in an era of constant noise, notifications every second, social media screaming for attention, people talking non-stop, opinions being fired from all sides. And in the middle of all this, your mind absorbs, processes, reacts, without ever having a moment of peace. The Stoics understood that silence is where clarity is born. When you're constantly bombarded by external stimuli, you can't hear your own voice. You can't process your emotions. You can't think deeply. You just react, like a pinball being thrown from one side to the other. Seneca wrote that nowhere does a man retreat with more tranquility than in his own soul. But to retreat into your soul, you need silence. You need to turn off the external noise to be able to hear what's happening inside you. And what most people discover when they finally make silence is frightening. They discover a mess, disordered thoughts, repressed emotions, fears that were hidden beneath all that distraction. And that's exactly why most people flee from silence, because silence confronts, silence exposes. In silence, you can't hide from yourself. But it's also in silence that healing begins. When you stop, breathe, observe what's happening inside you without judgment, without haste, without trying to fix anything, something begins to reorganize itself naturally. The mind, when it's not being constantly disturbed, has an incredible capacity to calm itself down. I challenge you to do an experiment. For just 10 minutes a day for a week, sit in silence. No phone, no music, nothing. Just you and your thoughts. In the first days, it will be uncomfortable. Your mind will scream for stimulation. It will give you 1,000 reasons to get up and do something else. But if you hold on, if you persist, you'll discover something that shows you're on the right path. And here comes one of the most counterintuitive lessons of all. The Stoics sought discomfort on purpose. Not out of masochism, not because they liked to suffer, but because they understood something most people don't understand. The only way to stop being afraid of discomfort is to expose yourself to it voluntarily. Think about your life. How many decisions do you make to avoid discomfort? How many times do you stop doing something important because it would be difficult, because it would be work, because it would put you in an uncomfortable situation? Now think about this. Each time you avoid discomfort, you reinforce to your brain that discomfort is dangerous. You train your mind to be more afraid, not less. The Stoics did the opposite. They practiced what they called voluntary discomfort, taking cold showers, sleeping on the floor from time to time, fasting for a day, walking in the cold without a coat, not because it was necessary, but because it trained the mind not to be a slave to comfort. Seneca was one of the richest men in Rome. He had luxury, slaves, properties, but regularly he dedicated days to living with almost nothing. He ate the simplest food, wore basic clothes, and after these periods, he wrote that he felt incredible freedom, because when you know you can live with little, when you've proven to yourself that you survive discomfort, you stop being hostage to circumstances. Most modern anxiety comes from the fear of losing comfort. Fear of losing your job means fear of losing your standard of living. Fear of being rejected means fear of emotional discomfort. Fear of failing means fear of no longer having the things you have today. But when you embrace discomfort, when you choose it before it chooses you, you discover you can do much more than you imagine. Now the Stoics also understood that no one, absolutely no one, goes through life without making mistakes. And one of the biggest sources of anxiety and suffering is guilt. That weight you carry for things you did or didn't do, that voice in your head that keeps repeating you messed up, you failed, you're not enough. Here's what the Stoics knew. Perfection doesn't exist. Never existed, never will. Errors are part of being human, and paradoxically, the more you punish yourself for your errors, the harder it is to learn from them and move forward, because guilt traps you in the past, makes you relive the same scenes over and over, unable to change anything. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when you wake in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. This includes yourself. What he's saying is simple but profound. Everyone errs, including you, and treating yourself with the same compassion you treat someone else is not weakness, it's wisdom. Because only when you stop drowning in guilt can you actually learn from your mistakes and become better. Self-forgiveness isn't excusing what you did, isn't pretending it didn't happen. It's recognizing you're human, subject to failure, capable of learning, deserving of a new chance. And the person who most needs to give you that chance is you. Seneca said we all err, some in serious things, others in minor things. And that the difference between the wise and the fool isn't that the wise don't err, it's that the wise learn from the error and move forward, while the fool stays trapped in it indefinitely. You can't change what you did yesterday, but you can choose how you act today, and the best way to honor your past errors is to become a better person because of them, not despite them. So if there's something you've been carrying, some error you can't forgive yourself for, I invite you to do an exercise. Write on a sheet of paper what happened. Recognize that you erred. Recognize that you're human. And then write what you learned from it. How did it change you? How are you different today? And then burn that paper or tear it up. Let it go. Not as a way to pretend it didn't happen, but as a way to say, I recognize, I learned, and I free myself. This brings me to another powerful practice of the Stoics, gratitude. I know it seems cliché, I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but let me show you why the Stoics took this so seriously. The anxious mind has a pattern. It focuses on what's missing, on what can go wrong, on what hasn't been achieved yet, on what was lost. It's like it has a filter that only lets the negative through, and the more you feed this pattern, the stronger it becomes. You can have 1,000 good things in life, but your attention is fixed on that one thing that's not well. Gratitude is the antidote, not because it magically solves your problems, but because it trains your mind to see what already exists that's good. It recalibrates the filter, takes you out of scarcity mode, and puts you in abundance mode. And this has real, measurable effects proven by science. Research shows that people who practice gratitude regularly have lower levels of anxiety and depression, sleep better, have more satisfying relationships, and are more resilient facing difficulties. It's not magical thinking, it's neuroscience. When you focus on things you're grateful for, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the same neurotransmitters associated with well-being and happiness. Seneca wrote that true happiness is enjoying the present without anxious dependence on the future. And gratitude is exactly that. It's being present enough to perceive what's already good. It's stopping living only in the future, always chasing something and recognizing that the present moment, with all its imperfections, already contains reasons for contentment. Here's a simple exercise that can change your life if you do it consistently. Every night before sleeping, think of 3 things you're grateful for that day. They can be small things: a coffee that was good, a pleasant conversation, the sun that came out, your body that worked. Doesn't need to be anything grand. What's important is the act of searching, of training your mind to identify the positive. If you do this for 30 days straight, you'll notice a difference. Your mind will start doing this automatically, will start perceiving good things that before went unnoticed, and gradually that negative filter will weaken and give way to a more balanced perspective. Now I need to tell you about something the Stoics called amor fati, love of fate. And this is one of the most radical and most transformative ideas of all philosophy. Most of us have a relationship of resistance with life. When things don't go as we want, we complain, we get frustrated, we ask, why is this happening to me? We spend enormous energy fighting what already is, but here's the problem. Resisting what already happened doesn't change anything. It only adds suffering to suffering. The Stoics proposed something radical. Instead of just accepting what happens, they suggested loving what happens, not in a naive or passive way, but as a conscious choice. Looking at each circumstance, however difficult, and saying, this happened, so it's part of my path, and I choose to work with it instead of against it. Nietzsche, long after the Stoics, expressed this in a memorable way. He said his formula for human greatness was amor fati, not wanting anything different, neither in the future, nor in the past, nor for all eternity, not merely bearing what is necessary, but loving it. I know it seems crazy, how to love a loss, how to love a failure, how to love an illness, but what's the alternative? Hating won't change what happened, resisting won't undo the past, complaining won't bring back what's gone. The Stoics weren't masochists. They didn't like to suffer, but they understood that suffering about suffering, adding a layer of mental resistance on top of the pain that already exists, only multiplies the problem. When you accept what is, when you stop fighting reality, an interesting thing happens. You free all that energy you were spending on resistance and can use it to deal with the situation effectively. And here's what almost nobody tells. The Stoics believed bad days don't exist. Training days exist. Each difficulty, each obstacle, each failure is an opportunity to exercise your virtues. Patience when you want to explode, courage when you want to flee, wisdom when you want to react by impulse. In this perspective, nothing that happens is purely bad. Everything is material for growth. Marcus Aurelius had a phrase I repeat to myself every time something difficult happens. He wrote that the obstacle in the path becomes the path. This means that thing that seems to be blocking your progress is, actually, the very path of your progress. It's through it, not despite it, that you're going to grow. I want you to think about the greatest difficulty you faced in life, something that at the time seemed unbearable. Now look back, you survived. And more than that, you probably learned something, probably became stronger, wiser, more prepared to deal with other difficulties. What seemed like the end was actually a transformation. This doesn't mean you're going to like suffering. It means you can find purpose in suffering, can extract growth from pain, can transform each obstacle into opportunity. And when you develop this mindset, nothing has the power to destroy you anymore. Because everything, absolutely everything, becomes fuel for your development. If this video is touching you, if these words are making sense, I have a request. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Maybe someone you know who's going through a difficult time, who's being consumed by anxiety, who's lost hope. Sometimes a single message at the right moment can change the course of a life, and you can be the messenger of this change. Now I'm going to teach you a practice the Stoics did daily, and that has enormous power to reduce anxiety. It's called negative visualization, but don't let the name scare you. It's different from negative thinking. The idea is simple. Regularly, you dedicate a few minutes to imagining losing the things you love, your health, your relationships, your possessions, your life. Seems morbid, but the effect is surprising. When you imagine losing something, when you really contemplate the possibility, two things happen. First, you prepare yourself emotionally. If that really happens one day, you'll have already gone through the process in your mind. The shock will be less. Adaptation will be faster. The Stoics called this premeditation of evils. Second, and this is most beautiful, you begin to value more what you have while you still have it. We get used to good things. They become landscape, background, normality. You stop noticing. But when you imagine losing, when you contemplate absence, suddenly presence gains brightness again. You look at the person you love and realize how precious they are. Look at your health and feel grateful it works. Look at the small comforts of your life and stop taking them for granted. This is one of Stoicism's most beautiful paradoxes. Thinking about loss increases gratitude. Contemplating the negative intensifies appreciation of the positive. It's counterintuitive, but it works. Try doing this now. Think of someone you love. Now imagine this person isn't here tomorrow. Really imagine. What would your life be like without them? What would you regret not having said? What moments would you wish you'd enjoyed more? Stay with that feeling for a moment. And now realize the person is still here. There's still time. That call you're postponing, that hug you're saving, that word of love you don't express, there's still time. The Stoics did this not to depress themselves, but to wake up, to exit autopilot mode and live consciously, to not need to lose something to finally value it. And this brings me to the last lesson, the most important of all. The lesson I said at the beginning could completely change how you face your problems. Everything I've taught you so far, all this ancient knowledge, is worth nothing if it stays only in theory. The difference between who transforms their life and who continues suffering isn't information, it's action. Most people watch videos like this, feel inspired for a few minutes, and then return exactly to the same life. Nothing changes because they change nothing. The Stoics weren't armchair philosophers. They didn't just think about these ideas. They practiced, daily, with discipline, with consistency. Marcus Aurelius woke at dawn to write reflections. Seneca dedicated time every night to review his day's actions. Epictetus constantly repeated his teachings, knowing the mind needs repetition to truly change. So here's my final challenge to you. Don't let this video be just another video. Choose one thing, just one from what you learned today, and put it into practice tomorrow. Could be questioning a negative thought. could be 10 minutes of silence, could be practicing gratitude before sleeping, could be a small voluntary discomfort. Doesn't matter which you choose. What matters is that you do it, and then do it again the next day, and the next, and the next. Because transformation doesn't happen in a great moment of illumination. It happens in thousands of small moments of choice. Each time you decide not to obey an anxious thought, you strengthen new neural pathways. Each time you choose focus instead of worry, you build a new pattern. Each time you act despite fear, you prove to yourself you're capable. The Stoics lived more than 2,000 years ago. They didn't have cell phones, didn't have internet, didn't have the thousands of distractions we have today. In many ways, their life was simpler. But in other ways, it was infinitely harder. Wars, diseases, slavery, death everywhere. And still, they found serenity. If they succeeded amid the chaos of the ancient world, you can succeed amid the chaos of the modern world. Technology changed, society changed, but the human mind remains the same. The fears are the same, the anxieties are the same, and the solutions are also the same. You don't need more information, you need more practice. Don't need more videos, need more action. Don't need to understand perfectly, need to start imperfectly. So start today, now. Don't wait for the perfect moment because it doesn't exist. Don't wait to feel prepared because you'll never feel it. Don't wait for anxiety to pass to start acting because anxiety passes when you act. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations a phrase I want to leave with you. He said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Don't waste more time thinking about how it would be to have less anxiety. Practice. Don't waste more time worrying about the future. Live the present. Don't waste more time being hostage to your fears. Face them. The life you want is on the other side of the action you're avoiding. What are you waiting for? I thank you so much for staying with me until the end. This shows you're different, that you're committed to your transformation. If this video helped you, leave a like to show me this type of content makes a difference. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet to continue receiving videos that can change your perspective. And comment below the word transformation so I know you made it to the end and that you're ready to put all this into practice. See you in the next video. Until then, remember, you're stronger than you think, more capable than you believe, and more prepared than you feel. The Stoics proved this 2,000 years ago. Now it's your turn to prove it. And before you go, I want to leave you with one last reflection. Everything you learned today, all these ancient teachings, they weren't preserved by chance. They survived wars, falls of empires, centuries of oblivion, and reached you now at this moment for a reason. Maybe you needed to hear exactly this, exactly today. Maybe this is the push you needed to start changing. Or maybe it's just another seed planted that will germinate when you least expect it. Either way, the knowledge is with you now. What you do with it is your choice. The Stoics believed in the power of choice, believed that regardless of external circumstances, we always have the power to choose how we respond. This is the only freedom nobody can take from you. Use it well. Take care of your mind as you would your most precious possession, because it is. Train it with the same dedication you train your body. Feed it with thoughts that strengthen you, not destroy you. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take that step today. The peace you seek is already within you, always has been. You just need to learn to access it. And now you have the tools. The rest is practice. The rest is choice. The rest is you.